No? Papa, help us.
Praise the Lord. There is a Yoruba tradition that the mother or the father will have it at the bottom, at their heart, that we do not divorce. In our house, we do not divorce. So they will inculcate it into the child, to the daughter, that you are in, no coming out. Because the room you have is already taken. So nowhere to come to. So you stay over there. So that is one tradition to get the lady to stick to the husband.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Sorry to turn it around, okay? My tradition, where I'm coming from, is different. They'll tell you, as a female, you have a room in your father's house. So on the day of the marriage, they'll tell the man, if you mistreat our daughter, she will come back. Yeah, they tell you straight to your face so that you take care of their child. And if you don't take care of the child and they notice it, they're going to call a meeting for it. And if you're not responsible, they will ask her to pack and come back to the house. Whenever he's responsible, that's when you can return. So it's like opposite.
Interesting. Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you. Any other culture? Any other? No? No? Yes, ma'am.
Praise the Lord. There is something that we usually practice in Yoruba land, that when you give your daughter, especially meant for women, when you give out your daughter or the father to the husband, there is no place you can be coming out, interfere into their marriage. They always say that once you have already done it, you should release it from your heart. There is no way you could be going back and front to know what they were doing. It looked like when you buy a goat from the market, they always tie rope for you to bring the goat inside into your house. Once you've already have the goat, you need to release the rope. So the rope is the lady that you've already give out to the husband. You cannot be going back and front to know what they were cooking, to know what they are saying, to interfere into their finances. Nothing concerns you. You've already surrendered her to the husband.
So once you give your daughter to a husband, you just close your eyes and don't go and look around and see if he takes good care of her or not. Is that what you're saying, Mama?
The husband will take good care of the husband, of the lady.
Right.
The only thing that once you already buy a goat from the market, you want to rear the goat in your compound. You need to release the rope out of the neck.
Oh, yes.
The rope is that you've already surrendered your husband to the husband, so there's no back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
You
No interference. Okay.
to their own space.
Yes, give them space. Yes, yes. What a man, when God had joined together, let no man put asunder. Okay, any other ideas? Rokhaya, do you have something to say?
I can't recall any.
Can't recall any.
I'm a guy, so I'm on my own basically out there, I'm kicked out of the house early, so there's no returning for me, so I don't know.
Thank you. Okay. Does anybody else want to say something? Okay. Well, without any further delay, let's take our time to welcome our speaker for the night, our own, one of a kind, daughter of the Most High God. I'm telling you, she's a daughter of the whole Most High God, outstanding worshiper. Where do I begin? From the top. Okay, Sonya, you have the platform.
That's always a good place to start, from the top. All right. Greetings to everyone tonight. I want to welcome you all here. This is not one of my favorite places to be. I'd rather be sitting there with you all and listening to what's happening up here, but as God would have it to be, I'm here tonight, or this evening. So by no means am I an expert at this and at marriage or finances, which is what we're here to talk about. But I believe, like everyone else, that I am growing and I am learning as I go. And for many of you can probably tell stories about your own experiences in your marriage as it relates to your finances and how you developed your own methods within your marriage for your finances and your home. So tonight, as I speak to you, feel free to speak back to me, and so that we can all grow. I'm getting some directions here from the back, in the peanut gallery. So feel free to speak back to me, and so that we can share together and learn together. All right? Okay, so marriage. What is marriage? When we think about marriage, we think about, as a matter of fact, you tell me, what do you think about when we talk about marriage? Binding contract. Okay, anything else? Union between a man and a woman. Okay, one more. I love that. I absolutely love that. Continue. You finished? I got too excited, sorry.
So you break what was existing now and then put together. So no more this one, no more this now. It's smart, put together.
Wonderful. Wonderful. It's as if you were reading my notes. Marriage. I have here that marriage is not a partnership. When we think about a partnership is we have certain allocations to certain things. So it's a 50-50 or a 70-30 or whatever, which makes up the 100%. It's not a partnership, right? It's not an acquisition. An acquisition is where one, when we're thinking in the business sense, it's where one company goes in and takes over, right? But that company maintains the leadership and all the structure, and the other company just kind of slides in and kind of plays its part, right? It's not an acquisition. A marriage is a merger. Like Mommy said, it's where two come together and what existed before dissolves and we now form one union. So now we have one leadership structure. Sometimes when you look at mergers in the corporate world, you have, two existing companies and you have two different management styles. They come together, and a lot of times the two separate managing companies, they form one main management company Sometimes you have employees who are employed under each company. You have employees sometimes, get laid off, and the best of the best are gathered in to become this new company. So 2 separate companies coming together to form one company, one union. Some things fall off in order to make it a strong union. But the main focus here, or the main idea here, is that we come together to form one. Not a partnership, but one union. All right? So marriage can be considered as a merger, where 2 entities or 2 bodies come together to form one. Marriage requires being intentional. Does anybody know who won the Super Bowl this year? The LA Rams. The LA Rams won the Super Bowl this year. And in order for the LA Rams to get to that place, they had to do some things. They had to formulate a plan. They didn't just get up and say, okay, I'm going to win the Super Bowl. There had to be a plan in place, right? They had to train hard, all right? They had to work together as a team. They had to make some sacrifices. If we're talking about marriage, marriage just doesn't happen on its own. We have to be intentional. We have to work at it. We have to make a plan. We have to work together as a team. We are one flesh, right? That's what the scripture says. We now become one flesh. So as a team, we work together for the common good of developing that marriage into something successful. All right? I want you to just take a moment here. We're going to pause right here, and we're going to listen to a clip from Dave Ramsey before we jump into the whole topic of tonight. Yes, we know we're here to talk about finances and marriage, but I wanted to show this clip from Dave Ramsey to kind of segue into what I'm going to talk about tonight. Looks like he's saying something very interesting.
It's a long time ago. I tell you what, it's still fresh in my of divorce in America today. The number one thing that couples fight about: money fights and money problems. So when your marriage is facing financial stress, it is facing one of the most formidable enemies of your marriage it will ever face. More people split up over that than anything else. Bankruptcy and divorce are best buddies. They hang out together. All the stats tell us that, and 25 years of financial coaching tells me that. And having lived through it myself, I mean, Sharon and I didn't get a divorce, but we the only reason we held on to each other is to get a better grip so we could smack each other again. That's a metaphor. But I mean, it's just, man, when we were going broke, we were like, claws were out, teeth were bared. It was like rough. She told me, she said, I'd leave, but I don't even have the money to do that. It's a long time ago. I tell you what, it's still fresh in my mind. I still feel it in my spirit when I talk to someone like that last caller who was struggling. So let me just tell you, it is normal if you are struggling financially. Ladies, listen to me carefully. Your man is struggling with his self-esteem more than at any time in his life. I don't care what his age is. I don't care what his education level is. I don't care what his income used to be or even what it is today. If you guys are in a financial pinch, it makes him feel bad about himself, period. If he's self-employed, even more so. Because then it's completely up to him on his job, and the job's not doing it. The business isn't doing it. And I remember, it smacks you in the face. And guys feel worse about themselves at that point, ladies, than ever before. So the last thing he needs in the middle of something like that, ladies, is a barking chihuahua around his ankles. My mother said. It's the last thing he needs right then. Guys, listen to me. You're married and you're struggling financially. Your lady is afraid in a place you don't even have. She has a security gland that you don't have, and her security gland is spasming. She's afraid. And, if you're struggling financially, she needs an extra 3 to 6 non-sexual hugs a day. Some of you men need to look up non-sexual. Hug for the purpose of reassurance that's leading nowhere. Help you with that. Physical touch for the purpose of reassurance that is going nowhere. This is how you get through this stuff, guys. This is what you really do. And you hold hands and you grit your teeth and you resist the temptation, ladies, to tear him down. And men, you resist the temptation to throw fire on her fear. Because when you start singing the hee-haw song, you put her in intensive care. Gloom, despair, and agony on me. When you start that crap, men, your lady she melts down in a place you don't even have. She's scared. And it's not because she's weaker. She's actually probably stronger. She's probably more resilient than you are, men, in this case, but she is afraid in a place you don't have. Because women are, the main thing they draw from money is security. Men, the main thing they draw from money is esteem. We ought to draw it from the Lord. We know that, but we're human, and it's our broken parts that do that. It's real. That's how it is. No way around it. So, make sure, men, that you know this about your wives, ladies, that you know this about your husbands, and you can get through hard financial times and it not cost you your marriage. As a matter of fact, if you'll understand these things and just talk about them out loud, and you play all your cards face up a little bit, yeah, I feel like crap right now. Yeah, I'm really scared right now. It's okay to talk about it. And then you sit down and go, okay, let's do something about it. Well, let's get rid of this stupid car. And don't go looking at him and go, you're such an idiot when you bought these cars. He already feels like an idiot. He doesn't need you to tell him that. And if we don't sell these cars, it's all going to go down the toilet. She doesn't need you to say that. She already knows that. She's already afraid. Don't throw fire on the gas, gas on the fire, okay? Take the action steps without turning them into blame. You don't have to throw anybody under the bus to sell the bus. Sell it. Sell so much stuff the kids are hiding. They think they're next. Get 6 extra jobs. Sit down and get on a dadgum budget. Listen, I don't care who can't get a date. Turn off your television. Average millionaire can't tell you who got thrown off the island. Turn off your stupid television. Most of this stuff's not worth watching anyway. Like none of it, hardly. So, concentrate on something that matters, which is your life. Getting your life back. Sit down and start making lists of things we need to sell. Let's make Craigslist happy. Light up eBay, baby. Let's get some things going here. Let's take some action steps. Here's the weirdest thing. I'm so worried. I've heard that 25,000 times in 20 years doing financial coaching. I'm so worried. I've been there where I said, I'm so worried. I've been there. I remember saying that. The weirdest thing about worry? If you work all the time, you ain't got time to worry. If you have a game plan where you're aiming at something, the worry just starts to dissipate. Because most of your worry is about something that isn't even going to happen anyway. But if you'll go about your business of busting into it, moving your life around, taking an impact on your life instead of sitting around waiting on it to happen to you, it changes everything. It suddenly changes your self-esteem, men, and ladies, it suddenly helps your fear go away. When you get in a game plan and you go after it and you just draw back and start punching stuff, not each other, it changes everything, you guys. It moves the needle. It's the funniest thing. Your self-esteem will get better when you start doing something.
So some of the things that he talked about, I think one of the things that I drew most from that little clip is the fact that in marriage, we have to communicate and we have to come together and we have to be real, because marriage is real. It's not a fairy tale. So we have to be real about the things that are happening. We can't just sit around and expect that somebody else is going to solve our problems, but we have to come together and we need to open up, communicate, and put things on the table, right, in order to get results. We can't sit down and expect that things are going to happen on its own. He talked about a plan, having a plan. And that's one of the things that I want to focus on tonight, is having a plan. We're talking about finance and marriage, and there are various aspects to that topic. We can talk about investing. We can talk about, planning for our children's future. We can talk about budgets, just a wide array of topics that we can pick from under the topic of finance and marriage. But one of the things that I want to focus on tonight is that of building a budget, because I believe that having a budget in a marriage is fundamental to the financial success of that marriage. It is important, like I said before, marriage is not a 50-50, it's not a partnership. Marriage is a merger, right? And in that merger, we both had things, we both had assets that we're bringing to the table. We both have income. And we need to now decide that, well, it's no longer my money. There's no such thing. And that concept shouldn't exist in a marriage. It's not my money. It's not your money. It's our money. All right? So when we come together in marriage, the two becomes one. I want to look at, as we look at budgets tonight, I want to look at St. Luke 14, verse 28 and 23. Because if we don't have a plan in life, then we're just going to go ahead with every little wind, and eventually we're not going to get to the place that we hope to be. So the book of St. Luke speaks to the fact of having a plan. St. Luke 14 and 28, and from the NIV version it says, "Suppose one of you wants to build a tower. Won't you first sit down and estimate the cost to see if you have enough money to complete it? For if you lay the foundation and are not able to finish it, everyone who sees it will ridicule you, saying, this person began to build and wasn't able to finish. That's St. Luke 14:28 through 30. Having a plan, having a financial plan, having a budget. We must do this in order for us to have success in our marriage. For one, when we go down into verse 29, it says that if you don't have a plan and you start something and you can't finish, people are going to mock you. That in itself should tell you that, look, I need to put something down. I need to have a game plan. I need to know how I'm going to get from point A to point B. All right? So in every marriage, not just Christian marriage, every marriage, we need to determine how we're going to spend our money. All right? So in order to develop a successful budget, we need to realize that, one, it's our money, and we need to determine how we're going to spend our money. All right? First off, we start off with income. For any budget, we have certain categories, and income is the number one thing that you want to put down on your budget. Now, there are a lot of tools out there that will help you in developing a budget for your family or for your household. There are apps. If you're one of those persons who love to go out and find an app, there are so many of them out there. All you have to do is just go to your app store and put in a budget. And you'll see how many of them, those different apps come up. If you're a traditional person, you want to write it down via pen and paper, by all means, go ahead. There is no shame in that game. If you are a person who are good with spreadsheets and you want to use a spreadsheet, by all means, go ahead and do it. All right? But there are ways to develop a budget. And so tonight, I'm going to just touch on a few tips of things that you need to have on your budget in order to get to that point that you want to be. All right, so I talked about income. In each of us, sometimes, well, in some homes, not everyone works. So sometimes it's the man that's working, sometimes it's the woman that's working, sometimes it's both. All right, but first of all, the first thing on your budget should be, how much am I taking in? How much is the household taking in? How much are we receiving via income, whether it be you go out and work or if you have additional sources of income? What is that? What does that look like for your home? Right? The second category for your budget are your expenses. How much is going out every month? And we're gonna make it simple and start off with just a monthly budget. Some people plan for the entire year, and that's fine, but first you have to determine, start small and work out your monthly, and then you can think about your annual, okay? So what are your expenses for the month? What are your anticipated expenses? One of the number one thing that you need to put down for your first expense is that of your tithes. And I can tell you a little story about tithing. My husband and I, when we started out in marriage, we hit some bumpy patches in our marriage. You know, there were times when he was working, I wasn't working, or vice versa, and we had a lot of struggles. One thing we didn't do back then is we didn't have a budget, because at that point it's the fear of, okay, you know there's not enough income, and you know what the expenses are, and you don't want to see what the bottom line is going to be because you know that the income won't be able to suffice, right? So that fear was always there. But in all of this, there is one thing that we didn't skimp on, and that was tithing. No matter how little we had for income, the first thing that we did was put away our tithes. And I can tell you one thing, that tithing works. It works. I saw it in my family growing up. My grandmother, she didn't work, but whenever her children would send money home and whatever money she had, there was always money going into tithing. She made sure of that. And that's one thing that my husband and I, we focused on in our marriage. We never failed to tithe because there is a blessing, there's a special blessing in tithing, right? So that's the number one expense that needs to be on your budget is that of tithing, giving to the Lord, giving back that 10% to the Lord. The next thing that you want to put down on your budget is that of your mortgage or your rent, because we know we all need some place to live unless you're blessed and you're living for free. But in this here America, that doesn't happen very often, right? You have to pay for where you're living, all right? And we will, by God's grace, get to the point one day where we don't have to pay a mortgage. I'm believing that. I'm trusting in God for that, where all of us will celebrate the fact we'll have what the Americans called mortgage burning ceremonies. Yes, where we can all burn our mortgages because we've paid them off and we're living for free. And even then, it's still not free because you have to pay property taxes. So, it's not free. But anyways, so you need to put down your mortgage, you need to put down your rent. How much are you expending for that each month? Then, of course, if you have a house or you're living somewhere, you have to talk about utilities. You can't live without light and water. Need that, right? So you need to put down how much am I spending for light, water. All of us have phones. Nobody has, well, it's very rare when you go into a house these days and somebody has a landline. It's all cell phone these days, right? So how much are you paying for your cell phone? For some of us, we have cable, right? Internet. What are you paying for all of that? These are things that we know because we get the bill every month. And even if you set them up on automatic withdrawals, you still can go into your bank account and see how much is being withdrawn every month. It's not a blind thing. It's there. You have the information, right? So we know all of these expenses. All right? So the next thing, the fourth thing you want to put on your budget. Can't do without it. Anybody? Can anybody guess what that is? Food. Food, you've got to eat. Yes, we can fast, and we know that we have to, sacrifice the will, but at some point, we have to eat, right? So we need to put away how much are we spending, or do we plan to spend on food every month? Now, when we get to the category of food, for some people, you might want to divide that into two. Because for some people, you may want to say, okay, how much am I going to spend on groceries? If that's all you do is cook and feed your family, okay, that's good. But for some folks, they like to go out and eat. How much are you going to spend on that for the month? Right? So break it up into two categories. How much are you going to spend for grocery? How much are we going to spend for going out to eat? Right? So that's number 4. For some, we have another category called children. We'll just leave it at that. Childcare. We know that childcare, back home when we were growing up, I'm sure I can say this, it might be the same in Africa as it was in Jamaica, where you had neighbors and the neighbors didn't work, or you had grandparents and parents and somebody didn't work, so they would watch your kids for you while you go out and, earn income and come back home. And sometimes you come back home and the kids are fed and put to bed and nothing to worry about. Whew, those were nice days. I wish I could experience that now. But in this here America, the land of the free, home of the brave, you must. If you don't have a mother or a father who's probably not working and agrees to watch your kids, you must pay childcare. And childcare is expensive. It's expensive. I remember, the first few times we did taxes together as a family, and Savannah, this was when Savannah just came into the picture, and we looked at how much we paid for childcare for 1 year. It was a mortgage payment. So, this land, you must pay childcare, and you must factor that into your budget, because that will take a big chunk, a big bite out of your budget. All right? So, those are the main things, the core things that you need on your budget, right? Everything else, so for some people, they may want to put personal care. If you're a person who goes to for the men, if you go to the barber, for the women, if you go to the hairdresser, or you go do your nails, stuff like that, you must put that down on your budget as well. Don't leave anything for happenstance, right? Put it down, write it down, see it. If you can see it, then you'll be able to plan better, all right? So those are core things for your budget. And of course, you may want to put a category for miscellaneous, because we know that things happen. Things will come up that you did not plan for, all right? But if you put something down in that section, I don't know how much it's going to be, but if you put something down in that section, then you know that when things arise that you didn't plan for, at least you know there's a little cushion there. So those are some core basic things that you need on your budget. So once you tally all of that, and you take your income, these are your pluses, and you take your expenses, which are your minuses, and you net those all together, hopefully, you come to the point where you're positive, you're in the green and not in the red. If you are in the green, that is wonderful. That is great. And then you can start to think about, how much am I going to save? Things of that nature. But if you are in the red, we have a problem. We have a big problem. Because already you're planning, remember, we didn't talk about spending the money yet. We're just planning on how we're going to spend the money. And if you're already in the red, you have a deficit, then we're going to have to start thinking about, okay, how am I going to get to other things? For example, if you have robbed from Peter to pay Paul, which is putting yourself in debt, and you have credit card bills, what am I going to do then? How am I going to pay those credit cards? If you have a car payment, see, I didn't put the car payment on the core expenses, because a car payment is a debt. It's a debt. You may be able to do without a car, I don't know. There are other ways of getting around, but anyways, car payments these days are astronomical. If you don't put down a big sum of money, you'll be paying on average high 3s, 4s, 5 even on a car, right? That's a debt. So if you are already in the red and you have these additional things that you need to pay, we need to talk, because we need to now go back to our budget and start to see where we can start to cut things out or cut things down, right? So what can we What expenses can we eliminate? Well, maybe I don't need that cell phone plan that's $200 a month. Maybe we can go get by with the 150 or the 120 plan. So we can probably eliminate some of that and get to a cheaper plan. Maybe we don't need all those channels that we're not watching anyways, just wasting money on HBO and Cinemax and Stars and all these other things that we don't have time to watch anyways. So maybe we can cut down to basic cable, probably. Well, we might not need to eat out every week. We probably can cut it down to maybe once a month or so. Okay? So you have to go back through your budget and determine things that are not 100% important, things that you can cut back on, but you know that you'll still survive, you will still live. Even if you don't have cable, you'll still live because there are other ways to watch the news, which is, I think that's what we should be watching instead of all those other things that's not benefiting us anyways. You can get it on your phone. So you can probably get by with cutting out cable completely. And I'll tell you this because I did this, we did this, my husband and I, we did this in our marriage when things started getting really rocky. We cut out cable because there were other means. There were other means. We had, now have all these Netflix. It's $9.99 per month, back in the day, at least. No, I think it's a little bit more. How much? $19.99. Back in the day, it was $9.99, right? But you have these subscriptions that you can, these things that you can subscribe to, and it won't cost you as much as cable, because the cable providers, they really are robbing people blind, and they know that, because there are so many other means for us to get information these days. And if it's just movies that you want to watch, so many other providers that you can subscribe to, that you can watch movies without paying ridiculous prices that the cable providers are charging. All right, so those are things that you can eliminate. I did it in my marriage. We had to cut back, and movies were not important anymore. When it's for the greater good, it's not important. You can cut that out, all right? So find ways to cut back on some of the expenses in order to get to that point where either you are netting to zero, where you know that your income is covering all your expenses. If you can get to that point, then you're successful, at least for that month. Even if you don't have anything to carry over into the next month as income, at least you're able to comfortably cover all your expenses without worrying that, I'm gonna have to use my credit card. Because guess what? If you use that credit card, what happens the following month? You have to pay it back. And you're gonna have to factor that into your budget, right? You have to determine how much am I going to pay for this credit card? And guess what? The minimum payment won't cut it. Because what does that do? You pay that minimum payment, and something that was, let's say $50, and they're charging you a minimum payment of, I don't know, for number's sake, $5, right? But your interest charge is how much? 24.99%, right? So you're paying that $5, and what costs $50 is now you're building on it, because you're building interest, and you end up paying for that over the course of how many months and still can't pay off that $150 charge. That's ridiculous, right? So the goal is, if you can't afford it, don't get it. Try your best. I think that's one of the biggest issues that we face these days. We put ourselves in debt in order to try to reach to that goal, that goal that is not achievable for where we are right now. There is nothing wrong in dreaming. There is nothing wrong in setting your standards high, but you must be realistic as well. You must be able to come to terms and say, okay, you know what? I have a plan. And if by any chance you came into your marriage and you had debt, when you came into that marriage, your first plan should be, how are we going to get rid of that debt? How are we going to put this behind us so that we can move forward together in that union? So having a plan, developing that budget is key to the financial success of your marriage. And like I said earlier, marriage requires teamwork. A budget requires teamwork. It's not just the man or the woman sitting down with pen and paper or with an app and saying, okay, this is what it looks like, this is how much we take in, this is what our expenses are, and then the two, we don't talk about it, we just kind of push it off and say, okay, this is what you need to spend in order to stay in line. No, that doesn't sound like a union to me. That doesn't sound like a merger to me. That sounds like an acquisition where one person has dominant control and just dictates, this is what you need to do. We're together as one. And so we sit together and we develop this budget together and we determine what we're going to cut together so that everyone is in agreement so that this plan will work. The ultimate goal is that it will work. It has to work. Because if it doesn't work, then we start to have all of these arguments. And you heard Dave Ramsey talked earlier about, the #1 cause of divorce these days, money. All about money, right? Money. The Bible tells us that the love of money, it didn't say money is the root of all evil, but the love of money is the root of all evil. There's nothing wrong in having money and being successful, but when you love it too much, that it starts to create problems within your marriage, then that's the issue there. So we need to sit together, talk together, lay everything out on the table. Say, honey, that hairstyle that costs $300, maybe this month we're gonna, go to something a little bit more manageable, where you'll still look wonderful, but we're not spending $300 on it, right? Or, honey, one of the things I'm glad for is that these days my husband, he cuts his hair himself. So he doesn't have to go to the barber. He doesn't have to go to the barber. So that's one less expense. So now I can spend it. No, not at all, not at all. Not at all. But we must sit together and decide on, okay, what are we going to cut back on? What are we going to, take away so that we can, in the future, live life a little bit? There is so much, we work so hard in this country trying to make a living and never getting to the point where we're actually living a life. We become slave to our workplaces, always working, always trying to make sure that, we're meeting, we're paying the bills, we're paying the bills, we're paying the bills. When was the last time we took a vacation for ourselves? That's the ultimate goal in putting a budget in place. Because once you have that plan in place for the month, now you start to think long term. okay? Yes, we're able to pay down our debt. We don't have debt anymore. One of the greatest feeling that my husband and we experienced was just a few years ago when we paid off all our student loans. We paid off all our car notes. So we had no student loan. And if you're a person who have been in this country and you've had student loans, you know what that looks like. You know what that feels like. That's a big chunk out of your budget every month. And we got to the point where we paid off all of that, paid off the car note, and we were like, wow, so this is what this feels like? All we were paying were our mortgage and our utilities, and of course eating, because we have to eat, right? If we could eliminate that too, hey, we would, but we have to eat. But it's one of the most thrilling feeling to know that you don't have these things overshadowing you, and you're able to now plan for your future, the future of your family. You're able to, whatever investment you choose, in order to have a financial future, so that if we want to retire early, because some of us work so very hard, and we deserve to retire early, right? I don't know about you, but I deserve to retire early, right? And have enough strength in my body so I can enjoy the rest of my days, right? So you should be able to get to that point where you're able to invest and say, okay, this is for my financial future. This is for when my husband and I retire at the age of 55, even though they say it's 65, right? So we have enough money so we can explore the world, and we can go travel, and we can live it up, and we can do this and do that. This is where having that monthly budget, you're now planning into your future. You're now making these long-term plans for your family, so that, one, your children aren't stuck with debt when they're just trying to make it, out of their teenage years into their adult life. They have this debt hanging over them in the term of student loans, because that is a mortgage in itself. They estimate that you pay off your student loans in 30 years. 30 years, people. That's the same estimate for a mortgage, right? So here they are starting out life with a 30-year debt in front of them. Plan for your children's future. Invest so you and your children can have a bright future. Make sacrifices now so that in the long term, it will pay off and you don't have to worry about certain things. Being together and being in a marriage, it requires patience. It requires the grace of God. Working together requires that you lay aside certain things so that you can see the common goal and work towards it. So tonight, I implore you, build a budget. Don't just leave it to one partner to come up with that plan. Work together. Be patient with each other. Lay all your cards on the table. Determine what you are going to sacrifice for the common good, for the development of your family. Because in the long run, it's all about being successful, one, in your marriage, for your children, for your home, for each other. We must be successful. So I implore you tonight, if you don't have a budget, start. Start today. Start tonight. Put something down on paper. Go, get the app, and build one. God bless you guys. Question. And everybody's going to help me to answer the questions. Sister Vianney.
We're talking about expenses.
So, miscellaneous is for the unexpected. Mm.
Team, you say we should work as team. How can the husband and wife plan to pay off that debt in the credit card?
All right, so let's talk about the family first and the family expenses, the extended family expenses. You have to, both yourself and your husband, you need to determine the limits. Because yes, they are family, and you love them, you care for them, you cherish them, but there need to be limits. Limits to how much are we gonna give. If this is something that's recurring every month, both of you first have to decide on that. That, okay, we know that this is a must, I have to take care of this person because they're elderly or whatever the case is, and you plan that into the budget. But if it's just something where, you know, the hard luck story, and this person come this month and they bring a story and they need, and then, you know, next month is somebody else, and the following month is the same person who came 2 months ago and something else broke, the car broke down, or those type of situations. Yourself and your husband, you need to determine what are our limits as it relates to family. If it's the recurring thing where you know you have to take care of this person, then fine, you plan it into the budget. But if it's something where somebody just comes randomly time after time and asking for something, there needs to be a discussion as to, okay, how far are we gonna go with this person? And yes, you will have that cushion for miscellaneous, but you still have to be wise, right? It is better to show somebody how to fish rather to continuously giving them the fish every single time they come and ask for it. All right? So speak to that person, let them know, hey, you know, what's going on? Are you trying? Are you, trying to find a job? What's the situation? Let them know you have expenses too. There's no shame in that. Right? I can tell you, my husband, he had a relative that, he was trying to buy a car, and the guy came and he, told him all his plans for getting this car and everything, and yeah, just need a little bit more money, and okay, we looked at our plan, and we were like, okay, we can spare him the money to help him to buy the car. Okay, that was good. He bought the car. Man, I don't even have the money to license and insure the car, And, okay. So we obliged him, and we helped to license and insure the car. Fast forward a little bit more. A year passed, and it was time again to license and insure the car. And here he came again. Well, my brother, sorry. If you didn't have money to license and insure the car, why did you buy a car? I mean, these are some of the hard, it's going to be a hard conversation to have with that person, but it's a real conversation, because you have to get to the point where you know what your expenses are, you know what your life, you know what challenges you're facing, but you have to make that tough decision. And sorry, you have to cut it sometimes and cut some people off. It sounds harsh, it sounds hard, but they need to learn to fish on their own without coming and just getting fish all the time. Now, your other question about credit cards and credit debt, coming into the marriage with debt. Knowing your budget and knowing what your income is and how much you're spending for your core expenses every month will help you to determine how much you're going to pay down on these cards. My suggestion is, which I think this is the most appropriate way to go about it is to tackle your smaller ones first. And once you pay those down, those smaller expenses, then you start to take all that money that you used to put towards that small one and now put it towards the bigger one and just pay it down as you go. But it's achievable. It is achievable. Yes, Mommy.
One is, thank you. I think you mentioned 529 plan. I'm not sure what that is. Or
Oh, the 529 plan is a college saving plan for children. They recommend that once your child is born, you should look towards getting a 529 plan to save for their college expenses.
Okay, thank you. Second question is, in this country, in order to be able to make a bigger purchase, you should have some kind of credit worthy or credit worthiness. What is your suggestion as to how we can build credit, because we may not have 200 or 400,000 to buy a house, and we're going to need some little credit building strategy. What is your suggestion on how we can start to build our credit so we can actually make those big purchases?
Unfortunately, in this country, they say that you can't get by without credit. In some respect, it's a lie, because if you save and you're strategic in what you want to do and how you plan to achieve these things, you can get by without without taking out excess debt. There are people that are doing it, and it's not because they're millionaires or billionaires, but it's because they had a plan and they worked towards getting that particular thing. If you're planning on buying a house, there are ways to achieve that. You can, and if you want to go the route of credit and building a credit, let's talk about that first. One, if you're taking out a credit card, because usually they say that's one of the ways to start, right? If you're taking out a credit card, read the fine print. Read the terms of the credit card. The interest rates will kill you. So you need to determine what that interest rate is. If it's too high, it's always a good idea to kind of shop around and get different perspectives and find the one that's with the lowest interest rate. And they do have some cards that they give you certain rewards or point systems where you get money back, or you have points to put towards gas or whatever the case is. Do your research and find those cards that will give you those benefits and gradually build your credit. If you purchase something, do not pay the minimum payment. Pay more. If you can pay it off in one shot, pay it off. Yes, you can keep that card in your wallet. I suggest if it's just for the sake of building your credit, use it for gas, right? You use it to buy your gas every month, and at the end of the month or even before the month end, pay it off, right? Keep the balance on that card as low as possible. Never exceed 50% of the credit line that they're offering. All right, if you get to that point, you're in bad shape. You shouldn't have that card in the first place because you're depending on it too much. All right, but carry the card to the point where you know it's manageable and you're able to pay it off without having it stretch over months and months and months. Hopefully that answers your question. Yes, Kyle.
So when you're brand new to the country, of course you won't have credit, but when you take out a lease, you have to live somewhere. Leasing companies, they report your payments, and that helps to build up your credit worthiness. There are also secure credit cards where you make a deposit, and so you spend against that deposit, and you can also use that to help build up your credit. Make sure you don't miss payments. Make sure you pay on time, because that's going to have a big impact.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Don't miss those payments. And like I said before, if you can pay it off right away, pay it off. I remember, and sometimes I do things, and I'll tell you something. I'll tell you a secret about my family. My husband is the shopper. He shops. And sometimes he's like, oh man, I got this deal and I heard about this, and he just goes and goes, and I listen and I listen and I listen, and okay, all right, how is this gonna, and we talk about it and discuss it, but he loves to spend. But on this one instant, I went to the store, and the lady, it was a department store, and if anybody knows anything about department cards, the interest rates are ridiculous. Yes. And so I was purchasing something, and it was a little expensive. And she said to me, she said, do you have a card? And I was like, no, I am going to pay cash. She said, but if you buy this, then you're going to get this percentage off. I think it was something like 30% off. And that I thought about it, and I'm like, that doesn't sound too bad at all. And, thought about it, and I was like, well, one, I know if I take this card out, chances of me using it ever again is very low. And I can now save almost $100 on this item that's gonna bring my costs down to less than $200. I was like, okay, it's worth it. But you know what I did right there and then? That money that I was gonna spend towards paying for that item, now I got it at a reduced cost. So I just took that money and I said, okay, by the way, let me pay off this card right away. And I took that money and I paid that card off. Now I saved $80, right? And so I don't have that card with a balance. Yes, they sent me the card eventually in the mail, but it was zero balance. So I'm just walking around with the card. If I should ever need it again, it's probably going to be when they say, oh, by the way, if you have a card, you can save another 30%. And I'm like, oh, yes, I can swipe it. But by the way, let me pay it right now. So you just have to be smart. If it's something that's going to benefit you and you weigh the costs, is this beneficial? Is it going to save me, or is it going to put me in more debt? Then you have to make that decision at that point. All right? All right, if there are no other questions, yes. Yeah, I have a lot of questions tonight.
Well, I didn't have a question. Oh, I have to stand up. Okay. Sure. I didn't have a question. I was just going to offer you guys this resource that we use for our budget. We're actually planning our new budget because we just bought a house in April.
Awesome.
So we have to, recalibrate some things. But it's called the Numbers app. If you guys have Apple, so if you have Apple phones or products, they have an app called Numbers that you can click on it, and it has budget on there. So all of the topics that you mentioned, like income, and then you got the housing expenses, your mortgage, taxes, insurance, dues, it already has all of that stuff in there. So you can really type in what applies to you, and it'll do your income versus your expenses and all of that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Awesome, awesome. Yes, definitely take advantage of those resources. But another thing that you may want to look into as well, if you're not very tech savvy and you don't want to do downloading things on your phone. I know some people are averse to downloading things on their phone, but even your bank, they do track your expenses, and they do create these budgets for you. So if you go into your banking app or you pull it up on the computer, you're able to see they already create everything into categories, and you can move things around as you see fit. So if maybe something that you purchase on a recurring basis and it's falling in the wrong category, you can actually recategorize that item in your banking app. Or on your banking platform, and so it keeps everything in line for you. So there are so many resources available. I encourage you all to use it and plan for your future. Yes, sir.
To support the answer you gave to Sister Ibiene on family, that we always come with a cup in the hand. Let's go by the scriptures. The parable of the 10 virgins. They are going to marriage feasts, and they put oil in their lamps. 50% have had a backup. 50 did not. Now, you mentioned talking to them the truth. Sit down and tell them the plain truth. Those people told, when they were saying, oh, can you share me part of your oil? Say, no, it's not going to be sufficient for you and me. That is the bitter truth. So for these family members that will be coming with the cup in the hand, if we did not develop the attitude of telling them the bitter truth, they will keep coming.
That is true.
So the best way is to make sure that we learn the scriptural way, that it might not be enough for both of us. It's only going to be sufficient for one person. So go get yours.
That's right. That's
So,
right.
and that is that will help us a long way to keep these people afar off. So if you want to be generous, if it is convenient for you, do it. If it's not, sorry, that's because you don't want to put yourself in the same shoes that they have found themselves. So you want to be afloat.
Yeah.
You don't want to be under.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, that is so true. That is so true. God bless you, sir. Thank you. Thank you. Because, you know, one of the things I think in wherever we come from, they think that we are here and we're picking up money on the street. You know, and so everyone has a problem. Everyone has a situation. Everyone is going through a difficult time. Yes, but we are also facing difficult times. And, you know, they make it seem as if you have nothing to worry about. When truth is, you have a mortgage to pay and you're not 100% sure as to what's going to happen next month or the month. It's the hard truth, but you just got to tell it like it is. Amen. God bless you.
Praise the Lord. As you were rounding up, one thing that came into my mind was sometimes we take the money that we don't have to buy the things we don't even need in order to impress the people we don't even like or may not like us. In fact, I was speaking with someone yesterday. This individual is rich from my standpoint. The family is rich. But he says something about going to Goodwill to shop. It was you of all people going to Goodwill. By the way, you can find a lot of good stuff from Goodwill. Oh. Well, it doesn't mean that you should go to Goodwill if you have money to buy from Macy's or from Nordstrom or something. It's okay. But let's be mindful of being a good steward of God's money. The money belongs to God anyway. And we need to be wise. And I really appreciate you for the intelligence and everything about it. In fact, my daughter is crazy about Dave Ramsey. Before he says something, she says, okay, well, Dave Ramsey said this, and then let's make sure. So it's important that we be, what is the right word? be careful. Well, I can't remember the word right now, but be wise in spending God's money. And let's think about the greater good of the family. I appreciate when you said, it's not your money. It is our money. But I actually want to ask people, in a nutshell, how would you summarize what you had this evening? It could be about finance. It could be about the activity we did, the icebreaker that we did from the beginning, just to fill in those people who just came in, who were late. How can someone summarize what we learned this evening? We just have one male or one female, or as many people want to say something. What are you taking home? Yes, ma'am.
So the things that stood out for me, I felt like I didn't need that. I thought I was yelling. All right. The things that stood out for me is it's our money. It's not my money. It's not your money. It is our money. What belongs to me belongs to you. What belongs to you belongs to me. And if we go into our relationship with that mindset, we can do great things. But no one should be tucking away money like a squirrel for a rainy day. What rainy day are you waiting for yourself? You need to be tucking away money for yourselves as an entity, you and your husband and a family, for a rainy day, but not for you personally. So that really stood out for me because it makes me think back to when my husband wasn't working. The money that I was making was not my money, it was our money. And it was as though he went to work. And so I still consult him when I want to spend the money that, yes, I went out to work, but it's our money. And the other thing that stood out to me is the importance of paying tithes. That is not to be underestimated in any way. There's such great power, and I would imagine that Sister Sonya experienced this as well, is that as you're putting God first and paying your tithes, He is honoring that by making those ends meet that you didn't know could meet. You're like, man, I don't think it's going to work, but somehow each month things get paid and you're still eating and you're still surviving. So I would say put that very high on your list and honor God that way. The other thing that I took out is the importance of a budget. That's something that's always been a struggle in our family. We talk about it, but we don't do it. And I was like, we can't live like this. So my husband and I have, gotten better with trying to tackle those things. But a budget is so important. And so I'm going to go home and make sure that we have a solid budget, not this mythical creature called a budget that it's like a fog. Yeah, there's kind of one that we need to know what it is, because there's power in that, power in knowing, right? And it was funny when you said, oh yeah, we're afraid of what it really is. I remember those days of being afraid of what it really is. I'm not afraid now because I'm in a better situation, but that's still no excuse, because at any moment things can change. So it's important for you to know what you can save so that you can plan for the future. And I don't know, I think I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna leave something for the guy, but I really enjoyed this, Sister Sonya. Thank you so much, and I hope that it encouraged, it's encouraging for other families to come up with something that can help them move towards the future.
Thank you. The floor is still open for another person who would like to. Yes, sir, Papa.
Praise the Lord.
Hallelujah.
I'm thrilled and happy the way Sister Sonya defined the marriage in terms of a merger. Those that are in business, the business world, they will know the importance. They will know the outcome of when two companies or three come together and so on. In the form of acquisition, they become mergers and not partnership. That is in line with the definition of God when He said, a man and a woman will come together and become one. That's a merger principle. So, and that was an excellent way to show that it's our money, everything is owned together, thinking together, like it's been said in Galatians, that the head, the neck supports the head, still together. It's structured like that. So that is one aspect of definition of marriage that is very thrilling to me that I appreciate. Another one is an example of Jesus Christ in his ministry. He chose the 12 disciples. That's a structure. And he puts that in place, and it helps him to expand the gospel, even to today. Started from 12, and the 12 continue to expand, making the gospel easier to reach out. So planning is very crucial, it's very, very important. Like Sister Sonya talked about budget, that is the life nerve, planning. And from Genesis 11, where these Bible people were building to the sky, it is planning. Planning. When people come together and plan, there's nothing they cannot achieve. So it's become a formidable union, and they can get anything done. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I think we're going to just leave maybe one or two questions about anything regarding marriage. Any challenge, any situation, things you have seen, any question you have, general question about marriage, because you are here to build our homes. I know finance is one of the things that break marriages, as we have heard. In fact, I know a family that we worked with way back, and when she was in school, he was making money and making decisions about what happens with their finance. And now he's retired, and she still works, and then she makes good money too. She said, I'll be the one to make decision about our money. And then it kind of created friction, and to the point of them separating for some months. Thank God they're back together. But you know, something like this, who makes the decision? I like the way you put it. It's a teamwork. But anyway, I'm not talking about that now, but I'm asking, does anybody have any other question regarding marriage? Maybe something you have seen with other people, or what a situation just like the one I mentioned right now, something that creates friction in marriage that you would like us to talk about briefly. It doesn't have to be yours, it could be somebody else. Money? You want to ask about it, you want to talk about it? Go ahead. Ask. Like making money or not having enough money, Sister Sonya. If we don't have enough money, or everybody else, when the money is not enough, say your bill is more than the income. Is that what you're saying? So how do you manage that? And of course, they will. Mr. Ramsey mentioned something, how men feel when they don't have enough, and how women feel when there's not enough money. So I'm going to throw it back to us. What do you guys think? Sister Drew.
I remember him saying that you're supposed to cut back on things that you think that you can cut back on, and then reassess the budget and just get the necessities, basically. And also, he was saying something about working multiple jobs, like literally working yourself, until you're tired, until you get back out of the hole, basically.
Yeah, over here. Over here. Right after that.
So all of those things are true. It calls for buckling down. It sometimes you might have to take on multiple jobs. It does not feel good. You don't sleep. That causes another set of issues, but sometimes you have to do what you got to do to help the family stay afloat. It also may mean that there's maybe certain brands of foods or clothes or things that you like to use. Maybe you need to use a cheaper one. Maybe you need to start going to sales when you want to buy things. There's just things that just have to be cut back on, and I really like the example that Sister Sonya gave, is you just have to look, well, maybe we don't need cable. What are other people doing? Maybe we don't need to like get my hair done, my nails done, or maybe just different things. It requires us to cut back. I know there's these favorite foods we like to eat, or we like to go out once a month or whatever, but we're just not going to be able to do that. It's not easy, but it can be done. One of the things that I like to do, and I still do, is I also go to thrift shops. When my children were young, that's how I dressed them. We went to thrift stores and we bought clothes, and Daryl's actually able to buy them designer clothes from the thrift stores. So no one knew that that's what things were. But we still go there, we buy certain things, we just look with critical eyes to find the best thing. We don't shop at Macy's and Nordstrom's and do all those things like that. We just don't do that. So we're very conscientious. Even the car that we have out there, it looks all fancy and shiny, but that car it was a salvage title. It was a wrecked car that we had put together, and it looks high end. I mean, it is, but it costs less by a lot than some of these new cars that aren't Mercedes-Benzes. So it's that kind of thinking, figuring out how can I make things work so that my family can stay afloat. And those are those sacrifices. And it's just not an easy thing, but you have to figure out what the goal is and figure out the path to get there.
I think, go ahead.
One thing I was going to add to that is that what you have to realize that, yes, it's tough now, but what you're doing now, you'll reap the benefits later. So if you have to make the sacrifices today, if you have to work that extra job, if you have to do without some of the fancy things or the finer things in life, then it's a sacrifice that you make now, but you're planning for that future when you're able to say, you know what, we've been through this, it was tough, because I can tell you, my husband and I, we've been through things, it was tough, but when we look back at where we were 10 years ago and where we are today, it is the tough times that allow us to appreciate the things that we are seeing today in our lives.
Amen. And it will come to pass. Patricia. Okay? Okay. I think she doesn't want to speak anymore. I want to say to all of us, whatever situation or challenges you're faced at this time, Bible puts it in a very special way. It will come to pass. It will never come to stay. Wherever you are in your journey. But the biggest part of this is oneness of heart and the unity of the Spirit. Because you know what? If we all come out to talk about all that we've been through, you'll be surprised that what you think is the highest, biggest challenge you're facing at this time is nothing to compare with what someone else is going through. We just want to thank God that we were not where we were yesterday, and we know that tomorrow, our tomorrow must be greater than today. But you have to work together. It's not one man show. It's all of us working it together as a team. Was it Michael Jordan that says that talent wins a game, but teamwork wins championship? You have talent. It wins a game. But teamwork with your spouse will win the championship. And that's the best way to do this. If you're really still holding tight to my money, please drop it tonight. It is our money. It is we, not I. One stand-up tree can never make a forest. Praise the Lord. Chinyere, will you come up and you have anything else? Tell us what to do next.
Thank you so much for coming out today. Thank you, Sister Sonya, for that wonderful word. I told you that you were going to feed us, and you did feed us. And at least some of us that don't know where to start with income and expenses now know where to start, because you gave us bullet points on how to go about that. So thank you very much. And thank you to everybody who asked questions or answered a question. This was very, very, very educative. So thank you. Now, please, I would like to still remind us that our couples fellowship is very, very important, because this is where we kind of talk about the things that actually pertain to us as a couple. Every other thing we hear talks to us about as a family, as a church. But when we go out there, we're dealing with stuff as a couple. So please encourage other people to join our couples fellowship and come. We have fun, and then after we have fun, we actually talk about the serious things. So please I do encourage you to encourage other people to come. And bring a friend. They don't have to be members of this church. They just have to come and hear, because we know that the devil is out to attack marriages. And I have seen more friends get divorced this year than I have seen in all the 10 years I've been in America. So please, I encourage you to bring your friend if you are enjoying what we're sharing here. And we're sharing in a godly way, so that way you know that God is blessing families as well. So please bring your friends. In the absence of any other thing, this is my favorite part of the event, where we go and eat. I tried to rush it, but I was told to cut it out. So let's go. We have a little refreshment.